The crowd outside the TCL Chinese Theater in Hollywood surged with the same eager chaos that marked every major premiere. Flashes popped like strobe lights across Ryan Reynolds' face, his classic smile locked in place. Dressed in a sharp charcoal suit and flanked by his wife, Blake Lively, Ryan appeared the embodiment of Hollywood's golden couple. But the cameras didn't catch the flicker in his eyes, something deeper, something worn. Just 12 hours earlier, he'd been on a different continent. A black car with tinted windows waited at a private hangar just outside Charles de Gaulle Airport. From inside the vehicle, a little boy with tousled brown hair and hazel eyes pressed his face to the glass. A woman in her mid-30s stood beside him, clutching his small hand tightly. She wore a long wool coat and no makeup. Her eyes, tired but alert, searched the private jet as it landed. She didn't wave. She never did. Ryan stepped out of the aircraft wearing a flat cap low over his forehead, a simple wool jacket, and no entourage. He moved quickly and silently, the way someone moves when they're entering a life that isn't supposed to exist. The woman met him with a quiet nod. The boy, seeing him, broke into a run. "Papa." Ryan dropped to one knee, opening his arms wide. The sound of that one word, "Papa," shattered the silence like a bell tolling in a chapel. It wasn't his first visit. And, if insiders are to be believed, it wouldn't be his last. The woman's name was Camille Laurent, a former costume designer he met during filming in the French countryside 7 years ago, long before Deadpool was a global sensation, before Blake, before the headlines. At the time, Camille had been assigned to a small indie drama Ryan was shooting in secret, a passion project that never saw release. It was only meant to be a few weeks. But something happened between them, something that survived geography, fame, and time. The child's name was Jules. He was 5 now. No one in Los Angeles knew about him. Not Blake. Not his agents. Not even his closest friends, except maybe one. In the marble kitchen of their Manhattan penthouse, Blake scrolled through her phone while sipping an oat milk latte. She laughed lightly at a meme, then paused when she noticed Ryan hadn't replied to her last message. Her brow furrowed. She glanced at the time. He had said he was in London doing press. But the location tag on his assistant's Instagram story was Paris? Strange, she murmured. She dialed, but it went straight to voicemail. Back in Paris, Ryan sat on a park bench in the 14th arrondissement, Camille beside him, Jules on his lap, playing with a small toy car. Their conversations were soft, intimate, and French. They looked like a family. And perhaps, in a way, they were. But time was never their friend. He was due back in LA by morning. As dusk fell over the Seine, Ryan stood slowly, lingering just a few moments longer as Jules clung to his hand. Camille didn't cry. She never did. He kissed Jules on the forehead, then looked at Camille. "I'll find a way," he whispered. "You always say that," she replied, softly but not bitterly. He nodded, turned, and vanished into the shadowed Parisian street. Back in California, a TMZ staffer scrolled through metadata on a blurry photo submitted by an anonymous tipster. The image showed a man bearing a striking resemblance to Reynolds entering an apartment in Montparnasse. The date stamp? Just 2 days ago. The staffer hesitated. A story like this could explode. But without confirmation, it would be a career risk. Then the email came in. Subject: You want proof Ryan Reynolds isn't who you think he is? Attached: a new photo. Ryan. The boy. The woman. Clear. Undeniable. The staffer picked up the phone. "Yeah, boss? You're gonna want to see this." The morning after the premiere, the tabloids were still buzzing about Ryan's picture-perfect appearance with Blake on the red carpet. She wore a custom lavender gown. He wore his signature wit and charm. Together, they were branded Hollywood's most unshakable couple. But far from California's sun, in a quiet Parisian cafe, a different kind of conversation was brewing. Camille sat alone with a cappuccino, the newspaper folded neatly beside her, untouched. Her phone buzzed on the table. Unknown number. Again. She ignored it. She wasn't used to the shadows chasing her, not until recently. Since Ryan's last visit, someone had been watching. 3 blocks away, in a cramped office tucked above a print shop, freelance journalist Thomas Morrow flipped through the photos again. His contact inside the jet charter company had confirmed the flight manifest. Reynolds, had landed in Paris 3 times in the past 6 months. Each trip lasted less than 36 hours. Private. Quiet. Off the books. Thomas wasn't a tabloid guy. He covered politics and corruption. But this had the potential to ripple across both continents. He knew Camille's name now. Her address. He had seen the boy. and he had a decision to make. He could sell the story and retire, or he could dig deeper and risk everything. He chose the latter. Back in New York, Blake stood in front of the mirror, frowning slightly as she adjusted her earrings. Something gnawed at her, a tiny voice she'd spent years ignoring. Ryan was too good, at being two things at once, present and absent, open and unreadable. She didn't want to spy, but curiosity had sharp claws. She called her friend in London. Hey, was Ryan at that gala last weekend? The one at the Tate? There was a pause. No, I don't think so. Didn't he cancel last minute? Blake's smile faltered. Her hand gripped the edge of the sink. In Paris, Ryan stood once more on Camille's balcony, the city lights glittering behind him. This time, his voice trembled. I don't know how much longer I can keep this up, he said. Camille crossed her arms. You chose this life, Ryan. And you chose Blake. I chose survival. I didn't choose to leave you. He stared into the night. His fame, once thrilling, now felt like a trap. Behind them, Jules coughed lightly in his sleep. Camille's voice softened. He needs you. Not as a ghost who appears twice a year. As a father. Ryan didn't answer. Meanwhile, Thomas slipped a manila folder onto the desk of a French media editor. Inside, photographs, documents, passenger lists. The editor flipped through it slowly, then looked up. Do you understand what this means? I do, Thomas said. But I need more. What do you want? Money? A byline. Thomas shook his head. I want the truth. And I want it before the Americans bury it. The next morning, Camille woke up to a headline splashed across her phone. Ryan Reynolds' Paris mystery, secret woman and child revealed? Her hands trembled. She didn't need to open the article. She knew what it said. There was a knock at the door. She peeked through the peephole. A man in sunglasses. Another behind him. Not paparazzi. Worse. Camille froze. The knock came again, louder this time. She pulled Jules closer, her heartbeat pounding in her ears. Another knock, this one followed by a voice, calm and low. Madame Laurent, we just want to ask a few questions. The French accent was faint. American, maybe. She didn't move. A few minutes passed. Silence. Then retreating footsteps. Only then did she breathe. Across the Atlantic, Blake Lively sat in a quiet corner booth of a high-end Manhattan restaurant. The usual bustle of the lunch crowd faded into background noise as she read the article on her phone. Not just clickbait. It was detailed, sourced, relentless. The woman's name was there. Camille Laurent. A 5-year-old boy named Jules. Flight records. Surveillance photos. Everything but confirmation. Blake wasn't naive. She'd heard the whispers before, co-star rumors, fake scandals. But this was different. This had structure. Facts. Her first instinct was to call Ryan. Her second was not to. Instead, she called her publicist. We need to manage this, she said. Manage what exactly? The voice replied cautiously. Blake looked out the window, jaw clenched. The possibility that my husband has a secret son in Paris. At the same moment, Ryan was on a flight back to Los Angeles. He hadn't seen the article yet. His phone had been off since he boarded, trying to delay reality a little longer. He reclined his seat, eyes closed, but rest wouldn't come. He kept hearing Camille's voice. He needs a father, not a ghost. And Blake's voice. Don't lie to me, ever. About anything. And Jules's voice. Papa, will you come to my school next time? The air felt thin. He was running out of places to hide. In Paris, Camille wasn't hiding anymore. She packed Jules's bag with quiet efficiency. A few toys, clothes, his favorite blanket. They would leave the city for a while, maybe go to her sister's place in Brittany. But as she zipped the suitcase, she noticed something strange. The TV was on mute, the subtitles crawling across the screen. Unconfirmed reports suggest Reynolds has been renting an apartment under a false name. The anchor's face was grim. His team has yet to respond, but insiders claim Lively is devastated. Camille turned up the volume. The news had broken in the U.S. It was international now. She picked up her phone. Ryan had texted an hour ago. One word. I'm sorry. Meanwhile, Thomas Morrow stood at a bus stop, sipping burnt coffee from a paper cup. His article had gone global. American outlets were calling him for interviews. CNN, Vanity Fair, TMZ had offered him a guest column, but he felt no pride. He watched a woman across the street holding her child's hand, crossing carefully between cars. He thought about Camille. Was exposing the truth worth the chaos that followed? Then his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. A deep voice replied. You've gone too far. Stop digging. Then the line went dead. At LAX, Ryan stepped off the plane and into a blinding wall of cameras. Paparazzi surged forward, shouting questions. Ryan, is it true? Do you have a son in Paris? Where's Blake? Is she leaving you? Security pushed back the crowd, but the damage was done. His face, tired, unshaven, pale, was plastered across live feeds within seconds. His phone buzzed. It was a message from Blake. Just 3 words. Come home. Now. The black SUV pulled up to the Reynolds' lively townhouse in Tribeca under a barrage of camera flashes. Ryan stepped out slowly, not with the posture of a movie star, but with the heaviness of a man walking toward his own reckoning. Inside, the house was quiet, eerily so. Blake stood in the foyer, barefoot, her face unreadable. A phone lay face down on the hallway table beside her, buzzing incessantly. They didn't speak at first, just stared at one another across the silence. I didn't want this to happen like this, Ryan finally said. Her eyes glistened, but no tears fell. What part? The affair or the son? Ryan flinched. It wasn't an affair. Not like you think. Blake folded her arms. So help me understand it. He told her everything. How Camille and he had connected while filming The Wild Quiet in France, before Deadpool, before their marriage. How they'd lost contact. How he hadn't known about Jules until the boy was 2. I didn't tell you because I thought I could protect him. Protect you. Blake's expression darkened. No. You lied to me to protect yourself. She stepped back, her voice trembling. We have 3 daughters, Ryan. What do I tell them? That Daddy lives 2 lives. He sat down heavily on the couch, his hands shaking. I just wanted to do the right thing, and I failed at every part of it. A long, bitter silence hung between them. Then she whispered, I don't know if I can forgive you. Across the ocean, Camille paced a dim room in her sister's countryside cottage. Jules slept upstairs, his small form wrapped tightly in the same blanket Ryan had given him a year ago, covered in cartoon astronauts and spaceships. Camille's sister, Sophie, handed her tea. You should never have let him keep this a secret, she said. I didn't let him, Camille replied quietly. I just didn't have the power to stop him. The worst part wasn't the media firestorm, or the sudden, strange phone calls she kept getting. It was the way Jules kept asking, is Papa in trouble? His small eyes scanning her face for answers she couldn't give. And now Camille was receiving threats. Nothing direct, but enough to make her check the locks twice before bed. Someone wanted her quiet. Meanwhile, Thomas Morrow published his follow-up article. The Family in the Shadows, What Ryan Reynolds Didn't Want You to Know. It included no new photos, no invasions of privacy, just facts, timelines, and a reflection on fame, accountability, and the human cost of secrets. It was praised by some, vilified by others. Then his inbox pinged. New message. Subject. I know more than you think. Attached was a photo. Not of Ryan. Not of Camille. But of Blake. In a hotel bar in Madrid. Laughing. Leaning in close to a man who wasn't her husband. Thomas stared at it for a long time. This wasn't just a story anymore. It was a war. Back in New York, Ryan sat alone in his home office, scrolling through old photos of his daughters. His heart ached. Not just for the mistakes he'd made, but for the years lost with Jules. The birthdays he missed. The hugs never given. He opened his notes app and typed one sentence. I'll tell the world myself. The next day, he posted a message on Instagram. Black background. White letters. Yes. I have a son. His name is Jules. He lives in Paris. And he is not a secret anymore. The internet exploded. Some praised him. Some crucified him. But the truth was out. The post had barely been up an hour when Ryan's phone began vibrating with calls, texts, emails, agents, lawyers, family, friends, strangers. The world was spinning faster than he could brace for. But for the first time in years, he felt, still, he had told the truth. Now he would live with it. In a quiet corner of Paris, Camille read the statement on her phone, sitting at the window while Jules played with a toy train on the floor. The morning light filtered through the lace curtain, casting soft shapes across her face. She wasn't angry. She wasn't even relieved. She simply felt exhausted. She had never wanted fame. She'd never wanted to destroy his marriage. She only wanted her son to know his father, not the movie star, but the man. Jules looked up. Is everyone going to know now? Camille nodded. Does that mean I'm like the other kids at school? She smiled faintly. You were always just like them, sweetheart. You just had a bigger secret. Across the ocean, Blake stood in front of the bathroom mirror, mascara wand trembling in her hand. She hadn't spoken to Ryan in days. After the post went live, she took the kids and went to stay with her sister in Connecticut. The media frenzy parked vans outside their gates within hours. Reporters called it the lively Reynolds implosion. What hurt most wasn't the child. It wasn't even the lie. It was the years of pretending things were okay. She opened a new text thread and typed, "I'm not ready to talk, but I'm glad you told the truth." She didn't hit send. She just stared at it, then deleted the message. Meanwhile, Thomas Morrow stared at a new tip that had just landed in his encrypted inbox. A video clip, grainy, but clear enough to recognize Ryan's voice, recorded secretly in a hotel lobby in London weeks before the story broke. He was arguing with a man whose face was blurred. Ryan's voice was tense. "If you come near Camille or Jules again, I swear to God." The message stopped there. Thomas sat back in his chair, troubled. There were people behind the scenes, agents, executives, handlers, trying to control this narrative. Not for truth, for profit, for damage control. But this wasn't just a scandal anymore. It was personal. He closed the laptop. No more stories. Not about them. Not unless they wanted it. A month passed. Camille and Jules returned to Paris. The crowds had faded. The paparazzi had moved on to newer scandals. Ryan's post remained pinned to his profile, untouched, unapologetic. He hadn't spoken to Blake again yet, but he had spoken to his daughters. He'd flown to Paris 3 times in the last 4 weeks, and each time, Jules ran to him faster. In one visit, Ryan brought a book, a children's story he had written himself. It was about a little boy who lived between 2 worlds, one of cameras and noise, the other of quiet parks and bedtime songs. In the end, the boy finds a bridge between both. Not perfect, but real. On a rainy morning in Montparnasse, Ryan sat alone at a cafe with a notebook open. A fan recognized him but didn't approach, just gave a nod. Ryan smiled. For the first time in years, the smile reached his eyes.